Hello and welcome, people, to another episode of the Fair One podcast. We will be here discussing all things UFC 266. Um, I'm definitely interested to hear what everyone thinks, who they think is going to win, how, why. More interested in the hows and the whys because, I mean, we can all just chuck out who we think is going to win, but I'm very interested. I'm going to start on Sunday, on my Sunday, which is US Saturday for the fight day. I'm going to start with Dan Hooker and Hakparas fight. And I'm just going to go quick through this and just say who I think will win and why. Um, Randy says, "Hey, coach." Jack Bullman says, "Hey, Uncle Fab, I got afternoon shift, so this is perfect timing. Glad to have you here, sir. Glad to have you here." Um, I can't see Nazareth beating Dan Hooker. I just can't. I think Nazareth. I'm a big fan of Dan Hooker. Huge fan of Dan Hooker. Um, But aside from that, I am looking at it rather biased, but I do favor Dan quite a bit. I think he's got the reach advantage. I think he's very long. I think he can take a shot, which can also be to his detriment. He showed extreme durability. Obviously, that has a I do believe that has a shelf life. You know, you can't take too many shots, and at some point that is going to be the um, that is going to be his downfall at some stage. I don't know if it's going to be against Nazareth though. He's very, very durable, very, very tough guy. Is Dan Hooker? So is Nazareth. So is Nazareth. Nazareth whacks pretty hard. He looks like Kelvin Gastelum, kind of fights like him, but doesn't bounce as much as Gastelum does. Um, I think that Hooker's knees and length, and Hooker cracks hard too. Um, I think that the combination of those two things is he's just going to get through the defense. I think he's going to split him up the middle, either with knees or with punches. Um, I think he's going to catch him from the outside. Hooker's very tricky as well especially if he's got you hurt and the fight gets to the ground and whatnot. I do favor Hooker. Nazareth is no joke, but I favor Hooker in that fight by a fair stretch. By a fair stretch, I think Hooker will get the stoppage in that fight. Marlon Moraes versus Merab Valishvili. I always just call him Merab because I can't say his name properly. Marlon Moraes is a strong guy. He's got good guillotine. He hits hard as well. But I think it's just Merab's time right now. I think he can mix up the striking and the wrestling and make life very uncomfortable for Marlon, in particular with the pressure up against. He will just put the pressure on him, puts a pace on him, and Merab is one of the very, very, very best at bantamweight to do that, to be able to mix the striking and the wrestling up and really create pressure. So I see Merab winning that fight. Again, Marlon Moraes wouldn't surprise me if he was to catch him with something or he was to catch a submission or something. Yes, but I'd favor Merab by a fair bit. Women's flyweight, I'm going to go with Andrade, but I don't know the women's flyweights as well as I know the men's divisions. But I'd say Jessica Andrade. That's kind of where I'm leaning towards. In the heavyweights, Curtis Blades versus Jorginho versus Rosenstruck. I think Rosenstruck can definitely win. Some of the problems that I see for Rosenstruck is he doesn't move his feet that much. He whilst he hits really hard, he's not like a Derek Lewis or Francis Ngannou kind of guy. Like he does hit hard and he hits plenty hard enough to knock Curtis Blades out. Do I think he's going to do it? I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't think he's going to be able to do that. I think that Curtis Blades is longer. Is also the difference here is as well. He's much longer. He's bigger. He's like a bigger dude, and he moves better. He's more athletic with his movements. So I see him being able to um, get that fight to the ground, and I do see him being able to stop Rosenstruck with strikes. At middleweight, and it's interesting that it is at middleweight, we have Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler. Nick Diaz, I don't know like how long he knew he wasn't going to fight at 170. Robbie Lawler obviously thought he was going to fight at 170. For those that don't know, for those that know, but the ones that don't know, like your weight cut isn't just the week of the fight. Like you would have already been coming down from a heavier weight earlier in the camp, way earlier. Because like yeah, so you would have already knowing you're going to make 170 is a big difference. But I don't know if that's because Diaz was playing mind games, and I don't know. Like I don't want to speculate on it. Like to say, oh, I think it's this. I don't know. All I'm going to say, throw these out there, is like Diaz knew that he wasn't ever expecting to make 185. One ever expected to make 170. He wasn't going to make it, and wasn't even going to try. And he's been around the game a long time, and he knows that if he just says, "Look, I'm going to fight at 170 or 185 or whatever it is," they're not going to call that fight. That's a big fight for Robbie Lawler. It's a big money fight. A lot of eyes on that fight. So he knows that if he says I'm not, it's 185 or nothing, Robbie Lawler's going to miss out on that fight. And potentially so is he, but he knows he's not going to make 170 anyways. So there's that. Now, is it because it was some gamesmanship? Excuse me. Was it some gamesmanship on his part? I don't know. Was it just the fact that he's not in the shape that he used to be, or that he could be potentially in, and which then spells trouble? But like, there's a big size disadvantage there for Robbie Lawler already. If he's the one that's coming down to 170, was coming down to 170, and Diaz is going to try and make 185. So there's a size discrepancy there already for Lawler, who lost a lot of weight. As far as how they match up, I think Diaz potentially, but again, I don't know. It's a big enigma. Diaz potentially is a very bad style for Lawler. He's a guy that can come forward and box him and put pressure on him, especially the way that Lawler's kind of been shelling up against the cage lately. And Lawler can still bang, he can still whack hard, but I don't know that's that's going to be enough to take Diaz out of there. I don't know. I see the volume and the pressure being able to come from Diaz. And if so, there's no one better. And there's no one better than the Diaz brothers at doing that, at coming forward, pitter patter punching, etc. Everyone knows how they fight. Having said that, he hasn't fought for 6 years. I don't know what kind of shape he's been in. I'm going to assume that he's stayed in shape. But I don't know. But once that train starts to pick up steam, once like Nick Diaz starts to hit you and starts to get your read and starts to get your distance and your timing, and he starts to faint, and that really starts to shut your game down, starts to tire you out. Because your neural system is the first system to fatigue. So once that starts to go, it'll be very, very, very hard for Lawler to come back from that. Having said that, I do see Lawler's quite tactical as well. Like Lawler's not just Lawler doesn't just brawl. Like, he knows how to fight, and he's got a lot of experience, and he has been more active than Diaz, but he has taken more punishment than Diaz. But whether or not he's going to come out and leg kick Diaz and stop him coming forward, body shots on Diaz, I think will be interesting as well. I think it'll be hard for Lawler if he comes out trying to take Nick Diaz's head off, and he doesn't do that in the first 7 minutes, and Diaz has the gas tank still, then Diaz is going to be able to apply that pressure. It will be different, though, and it will be interesting if Lawler's able to land shots to the body and to the legs of Diaz and kind of start to neutralize what has traditionally been the Diaz brothers' weapons, which are the chin, the gas tank, and the volume punching. Is he going to be able to do that? I don't know. Valentina Shivchenko versus Lauren Murphy. I do not see Lauren Murphy beaten. So my pick there with the middleweights. The middleweights ones is real hard. I'm really kind of torn between those guys. I would have to go with Nick Diaz. Yes, I'm going to go with Nick Diaz just because of what I said. But man, that is an enigma because I haven't seen Nick Diaz fight in 5-6 years, and I've seen Robbie Lawler, and Robbie Lawler isn't the Robbie Lawler of 10 years ago, and he's taken some massive amounts of punishment. But I think Nick, from what the way they match up and what he can do, I think that it will be Nick unless Robbie can start to land, like I said, body shots and leg kicks, and he's able to do that with enough frequency that it's going to slow Diaz down without getting pressured and put up against the cage and getting boxed on, which is what Diaz is going to always try and do. Diaz is very good at that, man. He leans into you as well on the cage, can throw little elbows in there as well. He's very, very clever at how he does stuff. So I'm going to, I think he's going to be the bigger guy. So I'm going to lean towards Diaz. Valentina versus Lauren Murphy. I cannot see Valentina losing this fight. Even I think with the women's division, the punches chance diminishes quite a fair bit, unless it's Valentina or Nunes or someone like that. But so I don't see Lauren Murphy out grappling Shivchenko, and I don't see her outstriking her. I see Shivchenko hitting her with precision, countering her, hitting her. Lauren Murphy's brave, super brave, very scrappy, pretty wild, so that kind of leaves her open as someone that's a sniper like Shivchenko. So I pick Shivchenko all day there. And then we have Alexander Volkanovski versus Brian Ortega. And I pick Alex. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased, but even objectively, like that aside, I think I don't see Ortega beating him outside of catching him with something. If he hits him with something and kind of like rocks him a little bit and jumps on it, then yeah, I see it hard for Ortega to outstrike Volkanovski. I'm still not entirely sold on Brian Ortega. I'm not saying he didn't improve. I'm sure he did improve. It was a long period of time. But I think that the level, the amount of improvement that people talk about when it comes to Brian Ortega, I don't think is really as accurate. I liked the way he looked against Zombie. I really do. But I think Zombie kind of lent himself a little bit to that style of striking, like to that style of fight. And Ortega capitalized on it. I think also Ortega, when he caught him with the way he did, that also was fortunate for him. But I don't know that he's gonna like. Alex is very smart, man. He's very tactical. He's very smart. He's able to apply his strategy very well. He's Ortega kind of rolls. He kind of does a Philly shell and rolls with the strikes, and I see that as also being Alex leaving him susceptible to Alex's leg kicks. And Alex can kick. Not only does he kick well, but he kicks hard, man. He's got tree trunks for legs. Brian's not the kind of guy that's going to come in and wrestle, also try and really attempt to wrestle, which I think does himself a disservice with the jiu-jitsu being as good as it is. His jiu-jitsu being as good as it is. So I don't see him out wrestling Alex. I see it being quite hard for him to outstrike Alex. I could be wrong. I think any time that they're going to exchange fire, I think Alex hits very, very, very hard. He's got a good chin on him. He recovers quickly. He has been dropped. He has been dropped a few times by Max, by Chad. I think, but Brian's also been cracked as well, and been hurt and been outboxed. And I just don't see him. I just don't see him being able to keep up with Alex. Alex got a lot of weapons. He's very tactical in his application of those weapons as well. So, yeah, I don't necessarily see Brian being able to win this, save for catching him with something. If he catches him coming in or something like that. Yeah, but I don't see Alex. Alex is not stupid. Alex is not going to run in double legging. Brian trying to play jiu-jitsu with him. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm just going to answer a few of the questions here that people have written. Rob McKenzie says, greetings from the Frontier Fabs. Stoked for this one. Yeah, man, I think it's going to be a really interesting card. It looks like a great card on paper. I'm definitely interested. I'm really looking forward to watching Merab and Hooker fights. aside from all the other ones. The Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler fight as well, of course, obviously. Um, Randy says, "What's been happening on your side of the world?" Well, they're starting to ease the restrictions um, for COVID and that here where we are in Sydney, and so that's always good. We don't, you don't want that. You want to be able to go out and do stuff for sure. Um, EKSS says, "Did you inspire Volk to cut his hair?" I did not. I imagine that would have come from being in lockdown for so long and not being able to get to hairdressers and whatnot. Um, Seb H says, "Fab, how would a 214-pound Volko go against the biracial Angel?" That's an interesting one. Obviously, it's hard to say like that kind of stuff because, um, like, I mean, it's hold on one sec. It's hard to say with that kind of stuff because you like Alex Alex being sorry, I'm stuttering. Let's say that Alex, right? If Alex bulked up to 214 pounds, that doesn't count because Alex is tiny, and Rob would be just way too big. But if we were to take a Volkanovski that is meant to weigh 185, say, like if they were the same size, because they're nowhere near the same size. If they were to be the same size, and Volkanovski obviously was a little taller and obviously bigger, with how their styles match up is a very very interesting one. I think I've worked with both those guys. Obviously, I've worked with Rob a lot more, but I've done a little bit of work with Alex, and I've always seen Alex. I've seen Alex around. Alex, without giving too much away of either guy, I would say Rob is like the smoother, more natural. The way he moves is a little more natural, a little bit smoother. They're both ridiculously physically strong, both of them. Rob's a little quicker. Rob's quicker with his hands, quicker with his feet. Um, the wrestling and the grappling, they're probably about the same. Yeah, in different things that they do, they're a bit different, but they're about the same level. Um, it'd be honestly, it would be whoever implements their game plan the best, and they're both very good at doing that as well. Um, it would be a tough fight, man. It'd be a tough fight. The only thing is, the only thing that I give to Rob is that even if Alex was like we made him to scale so that he was at 185. If we made him to scale at 185, he'd still be a shorter guy in the 185. And giving the reach away to Rob is a big problem in that division. It's a big problem because you have to come into that dead space and he's waiting for you, like what happened with Gastelum, where he's going to chop your legs, hit you with counters. That's where the problem I think would be for someone like Alex fighting someone like Rob. You know, um, but other than that, man, it's really would come down to who could implement their game plan the most. That I'm talking about is a Volkanovski to scale. I'm not talking about Volkanovski bulking up and fighting him. Roadman says, I saw an interview with John Jones and he has that fire back. He looks like he's back on the gas station rhinos. And Garnu is in trouble. Um, man, I was just thinking, I don't know, man. I don't know. Because the one problem I do see with John is that he does get hit. He does get hit. He's got a tremendous chin, and he can take a good shot. He can take a really really good shot. Um, and I don't know nowadays, like with his wrestling and that as well, because I haven't really seen him wrestle someone. Yeah, other than Gustafsson in the when they had that rematch with Francis, dude, you can't take shots. You cannot take shots of him. With Francis, if he lands a shot on you, you're dead. You're gone. And that's the problem. And I don't know if John Jones can get Francis to the ground like that. I don't know if John Jones can avoid getting hit by Francis. that's and him at um, heavyweight, he loses some of those mechanical advantages that he had at light heavyweight, where he was generally the taller guy, generally had the longer reach, and he probably will still have that at heavyweight, but not in the same, not by the same difference, that he did at light heavyweight in general. And you've seen him when he's fought guys that have had like close to similar reach to him, or height as him, because it's not just the reach with your arms, the reach with your legs, it's your ability to just take a step and get out of the way, which the first fight with Gustafsson, and he has struggled with them, he has struggled. There's been a lot of John Jones close fights recently, so, and he's taken shots in those fights. Reyes, when he fought him, that was, that was a very close fight. So I don't know that he can take those shots off Francis. That's a big problem for me. Nicholas Bright says, "Hello, Fab. Just tuning in. Looking forward to the weekend's fights for sure, man. Absolutely looking forward to the weekend's fights. Yeah, like I said, there's a few that I'm particularly looking forward to, but I hope that yeah, I hope that they come. Okay, I hope that they come through. I hope, because sometimes the cards don't look that good on paper, but then they actually fight, and you're like, wow, that was super super impressive. That was like, I think last weekend or the weekend before wasn't the best card, but it was a great fight night. It was great. It wasn't great card on paper, but the fights were good. So I'm hoping that the fights are good today. Um, My Toby says, "Hey Fab, looking good as always. Thank you, sir. Really appreciate it." Wishful thinking says, "Hey Fab, hope you're doing well. If Ortega gets it done, how does he do it?" I think Ortega would have to catch Volkanovski with a knee, or with a uppercut, or with something. He'd have to catch him with something, and then either he finishes him with strikes, or he chokes him out. That's how I'd have to see him getting it done. I don't see him necessarily going out and out boxing Alex for any real significant amount of time. I don't see him out striking Alex for any significant amount of time. Having said that, I do think he's the number one contender. He's fought all sorts of people. He's not a nobody. He's good. I just don't see him out boxing him, out striking him. I see him maybe catching him with something. Could be with an uppercut, could be with a left hook, could be with a knee, as Alex is the shorter guy. Could be with a front kick up the middle, that kind of stuff. Anything can happen in a fight. And then either finishing it with strikes, or with a submission. On the ground, I favor Ortega, but I struggle to see Ortega taking Alex down and imposing his game plan on Alex like that. I don't really see that. And like I said, I don't see him out striking him. Hackinator says, "Fab, I copied your haircut. I hope that's okay." Yeah, I've noticed that a few people have, man. I noticed that a few people have. My Toby says, "Volk also copied Fab's haircut. The aerodynamics of his body is going to give him the speed advantage, a little similar to Fab versus Rob in their boxing bout." B. Johnson says, "Been a while since we've had a real good card, eh?" Yeah, man. I don't know if maybe we're spoiled for cards. This weekend there's the Joshua fight as well, if I'm not mistaken. So kind of had like a couple of good cards on, a couple of good fights on this weekend. So yeah, I haven't seen. This is probably the first one that I've been really, for a while, anyways, that I've really had some buying. I suppose one because of Alex fighting Hooker as well. I really enjoy watching Hooker fight. Diaz versus Lawler intrigues me just because I'm like old school MMA fan. I remember their first fight when it was like 17 years ago. I remember watching that, um, and just watching how good Diaz even boxed back then. Like, Diaz can box. Of course, he's improved better. He's improved a lot, but um, yeah, I don't know that Lawler can stop that train, that volume coming. B. Johnson says, "Haven't seen many good boxing fights this year either. I forgot about the Joshua fight." Yeah, that'll be an interesting fight. Actually, I wish I could watch that one too. I wish I could watch them all. Um, yeah, man. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just thinking about that Diaz fight, and I don't see. But in on this card, I'd be surprised. Like the other thing that this card has, in my opinion, like I said, I think there are like pretty clear like favorites in this one, in my opinion. You know, uh, as opposed to some other cards. Baron Bowler Master says, "What's up, Fab? How are you, sir? How are you?" B Johnson says, Lawler is really shot too, man. Looks like he's scared to even pull the trigger nowadays. That's the thing. That's why I'm saying to you, like, I don't even if Diaz is not 100% Diaz who he was or whatever, I don't know that he can keep Diaz off him. I really don't. Outside of landing something big in those first 7 minutes and really hurting Diaz and jumping on it, But traditionally, both Diaz brothers are super durable. They cut, they cut. But I don't see it, man. I don't know that Lawler's going to be able to keep him off the cage, keep Diaz from just throwing the volume, throwing the boxing. I don't know that Lawler's going to really be able to throw those leg kicks to slow Diaz down because it's hard. This is the other thing. It's hard for you to throw those leg kicks if you're not going to circle around because otherwise Diaz is moving forward and he moves forward, he takes up your space, and because they're both southpaw, they can they the leg kicks are there, like in the traditional sense. But him moving you forward is hard for you to throw effective leg kicks as he's moving you backwards rather than he's coming forward. Lawler's going to have to circle and throw those leg kicks in a way of trying to slow um, Diaz down and land body shots. I don't know that he's going to be able to do that. Hackinator says, I wonder if Hooker and Nazareth will make weight. Dude, I don't know. That's brutal. I'm telling you, that is absolutely brutal. They're both going to come in jet lag. It's going to be hard. It's going to be real hard. Hopefully, the quality of their fight isn't affected, and hopefully, their health, more importantly, is not affected by that. Because it's not easy, man. The plane bloats you as well. It's not you're cutting weight on the plane. It's difficult. It's disgusting. It's yeah, flying like that. New Zealand. I can't speak for Nazareth because I've never done that flight, but I've done New Zealand because we fly Sydney, Auckland sometimes and then go. And I've done that flight, which is very similar to the Sydney one, minus 3 hours. And it's a long flight, man, to anywhere in the US. So it's a long, long flight. People like it always makes me laugh because whenever I see people from the US and they come for fights or for other things and they've never done it before, it really spins them out how long of a flight that is. Because the US, like say US to London, New York to London, is not like people think that's a long flight. For us, it's not a long flight. That'd be a short flight. Um, uh, my Toby says, looking forward to the Hooker fight. Yes, sir. Me too. B. Johnson says, plus Lawler's never been much of a leg kicker. I agree with you, my friend. I do. I'm sure that he can. I'm sure that he can leg kick, but that's not traditionally his weapon of choice. Um, yeah, so I don't know. Uh, the Hooker Nicholas Bright says Hooker's fight should be fought at 185. Screw it, or at 170. I think because they're lightweights. So I think 170 at welterweight would be a decent fight for them. Different weight for them to make. Yeah. Wishful thinking says, "Who's your NRL team, Fab?" Um, I don't follow it like that. Like I don't follow it like I have a team. I was probably going for Parramatta a little bit this year just because I was doing some work with Ray, but that's it. That's all. B Johnson says cutting weight on a plane seriously sounds like the worst thing ever. Good God, man, the fluid that you retain on the plane is shit. And you're kind of trying to water load and you're trying to cut weight. Oh no, you wouldn't be water loading anymore. I don't know. I don't know if they would have cut most of the weight probably before they got on the plane and hope for the best and then just drink some water. Um, I don't know. I've never tried that one, so that one would be hard. Rob McKin, oh sorry, Nicholas Bright says inaugural visa weight fight. Yeah, something like that. You fight a visa weight. Fight a visa weight. Rob McKenzie says, if Diaz and Volk both win, do you think Diaz will overshadow Volk's win? I don't know why Volkanovski doesn't get the respect that he deserves. I don't know why that is, because he's an amazing fighter, man. He's a really, really amazing fighter. Diaz is like, he and his brother are kind of at that celebrity fight kind of status. So possibly it will overshadow it. Shouldn't, but it could. Um, I don't see Diaz beating the top guys at 185. Not today, you know what I mean? So I don't know. But it shouldn't, but it probably will. And I think it depends on how that he wins and how they win as well. Joshua Wilcox says, "Oh, thank you, Joshua, you champion bloke. Look at this guy, out of nowhere, just swinging for the fences like vintage Gomi. So excited for this weekend's fights, bro. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Joshua Wilcox. I appreciate it." Um, My Toby says, Fab, I always thought you were a para fan because I noticed you at their games on your story. Nah, but that was just because I was working with that kid that with Ray Stone. Yeah, um, that's all. You know, that's not because I'm a para fan. I think, is Eli a para fan? I think he played. Eli played for Parramatta. He played reserve grade for Parramatta, but he's a Penrith Panther supporter. Yeah. Um, Seb H says, "Who's Australia's next up and coming UFC star?" I don't know, man. I don't know, but I'm telling you now, dude. There's a lot of good kids, man. There's a lot of good kids. Sione Vacoso, hear these names: Brad Fulmer, Isaac Thompson. Uh, these are kids that you probably haven't heard of, you know. But there's so many good young boxers, you know, and so many good young kickboxers in Australia that they're kind of, you don't really hear them. There are some kids that are doing really well in the amateur circuits here in Sydney, like in the national circuit. But they train. Some of them train with Eli. This kid named Kane. There's a couple. There's a couple. I won't say too much because these guys, I don't know them as much, and I don't know if people want me even saying that they could go to MMA, because that's not what I'm trying to say at all. I don't have anything to do with them. But I just watch those kids box and I see their work ethic and I see their work volume. There's a couple of girls, man, that can really box in that group there. And not just there, like there's good boxing gyms in Queensland, there's other good boxing gyms in Sydney, in Melbourne, Adelaide, wherever, you know. And there just seems to be a really good, strong wave of young boxers coming through. And I don't know that they're all going to stay in boxing. I'm pretty sure that some of them are going to go to MMA at some point. So there's a lot of talent in Australia for fighting at the moment. Also the jiu-jitsu, man. Like I just see there's so many good jiu-jitsu kids in Australia now. You know, so many. You know, and too many to name. I don't even know them anymore. Tito Carl's a really good jiu-jitsu kid. He's only a young guy. Only thing for him is he's very short for a heavyweight. And he's very big, but he hits hard, and his jiu-jitsu is very, very, very good. And he's only a young boy. He's only a young guy, you know. So I like watching him a lot. And I'm just naming people, but there's so many kids that I don't even know their names. And you just go to a jiu-jitsu tournament, there's 500 people doing jiu-jitsu, you know, and there's good kids. Like kids now, they're grappling. Like I just and in Australia, we've always had some pretty good judoka too, you know. So now there's avenues for people to maybe go to the Olympics. They don't do that well, or they do well. Who knows? I'm just painting a picture, and they jump. But there's already people to train with. You know, there's a lot of good kids, man. There's a lot of good kids now. Um, Andre said, "So impressive how fast Volk gets in with his shots and gets his head off the line." Yeah, 100%. Wishful thinking says Ray had a rough performance in the finals. Man, the problem is he did a couple of mistakes, but he still did 42 tackles, you know, and it's hard. And I don't think that, no, I don't think, I know that that's not really the position like that he plays. But anyways, it is what it is. Keenan Milham says, how damaging do you think COVID has been for the development of young talent? I don't think it's been that bad, to be honest with you. The development of young talent from an athletic perspective, I don't think it's been massive because especially with in today's day and age where we didn't go into like say 2 years straight lockdown, There were times we could go back to training and blah blah blah. It was only like really it feels heaps right now during it, but it was only months at a time, which is not the best, but it's not the worst. And there was still like you could still train. Like it's not like you couldn't train. I'm talking for us in Australia. Um, like maybe you can't do jujitsu or whatever, da da da, but you could still train. It was only 3 months where you couldn't, you know. And there's still heaps of stuff you can do. And in today's day and age, with YouTube, the computer, blah 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 blah, you can still do virtual classes. You can still do plenty of research. You could still there's still a lot of things you could do. So I don't think it's going to be a massive impact. Now, what effects COVID has had, um, because parents have lost their jobs as far as development of young talent, that could be big. Mental health for parents, that could be big. Financial loss for parents, and the kid having like when COVID finishes, being able to continue to pay for sport and that might be big. So it could have impacted. Um, I don't know. I don't know. But as far as just the actual training, I don't think that was that bad. But in terms of how it affects parents and kids to be in the lockdown, it could affect a fair bit in that regard. Um, so yeah, that's what I think. I don't think. Oh, B Johnson says, do you ever get into betting on fights or do you stay away from that? I stay away from it, man, because um, I I know that I know that anything can happen in a fight, and there's been times where, like, and I have had and I have insider information to a lot of fights, and and those fights, there was a couple of times where I was going to put up not a lot of money, but it's a lot of money for me, where I was going to put up a couple of $1,000s because I was sure, I was 1,000%, 1 billion% sure that somebody was going to beat the other guy, just knowing what I knew, and they lost. They fucking lost, and I didn't put the money up. So there's too many variables in MMA, man. There's too many variables, and then when there is a very, very, very much of a sure thing, the odds are too much. Like you have to put $10,000 to win 2,000 or something. So no, I just stay away from it, man. I don't get involved in that. I'm tempted sometimes to bet, but when I see the odds, it's just not worth it. If I put $100 to win $50, or no, put $100 to win $2, it's not worth it. Keenan Milham says, how damaging do you think COVID has been? We already answered. Keenan Milham says, we were rolling masks for a couple of weeks, which I couldn't make sense of. Yeah, I mean, I don't really understand that, to be honest with you. I don't really understand if you're going to roll, like, I don't know that masks are going to help that much. You know what I mean? Especially with something as contagious as COVID is, So I don't know. I understand. Look, but I do say this: it's a very tough situation because no one has been in this situation in our lifetime, nor do we have real accurate things to go back on and look at and go, okay, da 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 da. So, yeah, and you got to try and keep the economy going as well. So it's a tough one, but I don't see honestly, just from me, I don't really see a sense of rolling in masks. Um, I don't see anyone that's rolled knows that even if you tried to keep it on, the mask is going to come off your face at some point in a roll, and you're going to go straight into someone's face. So yeah, that I find that one strange. Um, Andre says it's so risky, especially in MMA with small gloves. Not only with the small gloves, but if you think like you can get out wrestled, you can get submitted because you got out wrestled, you could get ground and pounded because you got out wrestled, you could get leg kicked into oblivion, you could get caught with a punch, blah blah. There's so many ways. There's so many ways to lose as well. That yeah. Joshua Wilcox says, gunning to see how Hooker performs after his last two. He's taken some damage. Thank you very much, Joshua. I really, really appreciate that. I mean, he's taken some damage, hasn't he? Um, he has taken some damage, but I, nothing against his opponent this weekend. But I don't see Nazareth having. I don't see Nazareth beating Hooker. I just don't. I don't. Not that he's not good. He's good, but I just don't see it. I don't. I don't see it. Nicholas Bright says, "Man, I'm firmly in Volk's corner this weekend. Man's beat Aldo, Holloway twice, COVID, etc., and still manages to stay humble with the whole "if I can do it, anyone can" rhetoric." Yeah, but he is gifted, dude. He's very, very gifted. He's not like if he can do it, anyone can kind of person. He might not see himself like that, but he's very, very gifted. He is. Um, and I am definitely in his corner, and I hope that he wins. Yeah. Roberto Wilco says, "Can we get your picks, please? Want to get my bets on." I picked, man. I picked earlier in the thingo, but I wouldn't take me. Like I said, we were just saying a second ago. I wouldn't say anyone. I'll do them real quick. I pick Hooker, Mirab, uh, Curtis, Nick, Shivchenko, and Volkanovski. That's my picks. But I went into it a little bit further earlier in the piece, and I won't go into it now because already went through it. But there's a lot of caveats to that. You know what I mean? Like it's not like, oh yeah, I think this is it. I think they will win, but only if these things happen, and I think there's a good chance of those things happening. Um, but yeah, that's my picks. I wouldn't go bet on that. Keenan says, "Dude has his wet rash guard plastered on my face, but the mask is going to save me." Yeah, I know, man. I know. That's a yeah. Andre says, "Very brutal wars recently for Dan. Those Felder and Poirier fights were insane, man." Barboza, Felder, Poirier, Chandler, big punishment, dude. Big punishment. That's what I mean. At some point, like, there's only so many shots you can take like that, and yeah, I don't know. He's a good guy, man. I just hope he wins, man. Roberto says, "Sorry, came in late." And also for Nazareth, man, I believe I read or heard somewhere that I could be mistaken that he lost his mother. So my condolences to his family and to him, and may she rest in peace. Because that's awful to deal with. I can't imagine losing a loved one, a parent. Horrendous. Fabricio, my namesake, says, "Hi, how are you, my friend?" Roberto Wilco says, "Thanks, brother. We'll rewatch." Yeah, just rewatch before you put money on it, man. Because, like I said, there's caveats to my picks. Like um, the girls I don't watch enough to be able to give an educated guess. I kind of pick Andrade, but I don't know enough about them to give a properly educated guess on how they. I haven't seen them fight enough, and I haven't seen them fight over a long enough period against common opponents, etc. That's me. I haven't. I'm not saying you haven't. Um, yeah. Andre says, "Can Volk hang with Ortega on the ground? I reckon it's a stand up the whole time." Can Volks hang with Ortega on the ground? If you were to say to me, if they were to do jiu-jitsu on the ground, like have a roll, I think Ortega would get the better of him. I don't think I'm talking out of school because I think Alex will tell you that too. But in fighting, it's different, dude. Because if you get hit and Ortega hits a deck a little bit not good, and Alex has got the cage, so he can put his weight one leg out and the other one his shoulder onto the cage and land some shots from there. Very hard, man, to destabilize him from there. He's very, very strong. He's got great balance. He knows what to do, and he will land some fucking bombs from there, and that changes things as well. So, can he hang with him on the ground? No, not toe to toe like having a jiu-jitsu match. Yeah, Ortega's, I think jiu-jitsu's a higher level than Alex's, but um, in a fight on the ground can be difficult. And if Alex hits him with a blast double and just stabilizes the position for a second, lands a few good shots, maybe cuts him open and gets out of there. Different story again. If Alex has hurt him with body shots, leg kicks in the first, second, and third, kind of like what happened with Max, then going into the fourth and fifth when they're both slippery and Alex has hurt him and maybe Brian might be tired, different again, different again. But definitely the advantage is for Ortega on the ground. Nicholas Bright says, yeah, sorry, I was just referencing what Volker's been saying in his interviews and embedded and stuff. About if anyone can do it, if he can do it, anyone can do it. He's a very, very gifted guy. Like when he's built like a tree stump, dude. Like he's not, and he has great balance and great vision and great ability to like not everyone can hold their mind under pressure and then be able to think and work tactically the way that he does, and he's not like normal strong. He's stupid strong. Rio says, hate to say it because I love Ortega, but I'm only giving him a puncher's chance. Can't see Volk losing at 145. He's gifted, in my opinion. 145 is going to be hard. I don't see a lot of people beating Alex either. I don't see Ortega doing it. Ortega can win. I just don't see him doing it. He can. Of course, he can catch him with something. He can. It's a fight. And he's a very good fighter, Ortega. I just don't see him being able to outstrike Alex. And I don't. Ortega's not traditionally a guy that's gonna be able to pressure Alex and take him down. He has got the length on Alex. He's a big guy himself. He could catch Alex coming in. He could with that, and win like that. Keenan says, weird question. Romero's height changed between Bellator's and UFC stats. Do fighters submit their own dimensions? More than once I've seen fighters with the same listed height, but obviously aren't. There's a lot of things that's not that accurate. Romero's gotten older too, so I don't know about that. I don't know. Romero's not that tall. Like I've met him a bunch of times. He's not that tall. And that also makes people like your build. Like I'm not really that tall. I'm just on 6 foot, but I look taller than I am because I'm kind of like long and kind of skinny. I used to be skinny, but yeah, I look taller than what I am. But I'm not really that tall. Whereas that might have an effect, but the measurements and all that, I wouldn't look into them too much, dude. Arena Valor says, "Am I crazy because I hate Rogan's commentary?" I mean, you can like or not like it. Doesn't make you crazy, Big R from P says, "What's Joe Lopez's background? He seems like a great bloke coach." I think like what do you mean his background, like ethnicity or like he's I know Joe for years. Yeah, I think he's has Spanish background somewhere in there, and he's got a striking background, but he's also a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's a very knowledgeable guy, very very knowledgeable guy. Yeah, so no, he's good. 10th Realm says, "Is Moraes first round or bust?" Yeah, I think it's going to be hard for Moraes. Same deal, like kind of like Lawler. I think he has to. He can do it in that first round, those first 7 minutes, but Mirab just keeps coming, dude. He keeps coming, and it's. I don't know that Moraes can do that one. That's just me. Sam Reed says Ortega looked shook in the pre-fight stare down. Volks was getting to him. Man, I don't know about that. Do you know what I mean? Like, none of that shit matters. Do you know what I mean? None of that shit matters. You think this that it doesn't. It really doesn't, because there's still a long time. It's not like even if he did, it's not like they're gonna fight right there and then. They still got this. The fight's ages away. So don't look into that stuff too much. JT says, "Hey coach, did you get the jab?" Yeah, I got both my jabs. Robert Wilker says those elbows are dangerous though. Who are we referring to now, Roberto? Sorry, man, because there's a lot of questions on there. Just let me know. Big R from P, coaching background. Said, yeah, I think he's predominantly a striking coach, but he's a jiu-jitsu black belt as well. Nicholas Bright says, in the ideal timeline, Volk submits Ortega, KOs Max in Volk's Holloway 3, does an Aldo and cuts down on 135 to clear out that division 2. I don't think Volkanovski is cutting down to 135. I think it's a big ask there. He'll probably go up to lightweight, but I think he should stay at 165. I think 165, 155, 145. I beg your pardon. I think he should stay at 145. Um, just simply because I think he's found that sweet spot there. Cream Pie Last says, should the state finance hair transplants for bald people? I don't know. Omar Jet says, do you see a finish happening in the main event? Most likely is that Ortega gets a choke. I don't know. Ortega, I mean, if there's going to be a finish for Ortega, probably be a choke, or could be a choke actually, because he hits hard too. He could drop Alex. Alex hits hard too, man. I don't know if he's going to be able to stay out of the way of Alex's shots. Have I heard what Izzy had to say about the New Zealand flag? No, I did not hear what he had to say about the New Zealand flag. Roberto Wilco says Ortega. Yeah, no, absolutely, man. Absolutely. He does have a lot of dangerous weapons. I'm not even denying that. I just don't see him being able to beat JG says taking some fat bong rips for Fab. Best podcast. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Keenan says, don't think Volk would enjoy attempting 135. Would have to lose muscle. He's already a nugget. Yeah, he's not seeing 135. I don't think he's been 135 since he was a little kid. JT said, yeah, man, honestly, I'm not going to get into nothing against you, JT, but I'm just not going to get into like politics and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know what Israel said, and you know what? I don't know Israel's experience, so I don't know. Andrew says Volks looks angry, unlike him. Bringing up Ortega's past was a good tactic, but it's been known since 2014, so I reckon Ortega doesn't care. I don't know what Ortega's past is. I think, man, again, like I said to you, Volks is pretty smart, man. He's pretty calculated guy. I don't think that he's gonna let that shit get to him either. Like I don't think he's like angry. Going. He might not think that Ortega's the greatest guy in the world. He might not think that, but I don't think he's in particular angry at Ortega as far as like, is it going to let him? Is that going to get between him and winning? Like, nah. If Ortega catches him and beats him, good for him. If not, it is what it is. But yeah, it's a tough out. Don't get me wrong. I see like Ortega can definitely win, but I just don't see him beating Alex. I just don't. I don't see him outstriking Alex. Andrew says, "Oh yes, when he got fined for taking drugs to cut weight." Yeah, well, that is performance enhancing drugs, which I'm not a fan of. Yeah, I didn't know when you said he brought up his past. I didn't know what he was referring to. But yeah, like I know I'm not a fan of that. So yeah, interesting, man. Interesting. Let me know who you guys think and why as well. I'm just interested. And if I cut out, then let me know in the comments afterwards. And let me know what you think of my picks as well. William Smith says, do you reckon Rob has a good chance in the Adesanya rematch? Yeah, I mean, of course he has a good chance, man. I think he has a great chance to beat Israel. I think Israel has a great chance to beat him. I don't think there's a lot in those fights between them. I think they could fight a whole bunch of times, and it's always going to come down to who's going to catch who on the button, And in the last fight, Israel caught him, and there was not much in that fight. I think every time they fight, it's going to be something like that. It's going to be who catches who on the button. Another interesting guy that's in there is Alex Pereira, because he's another guy like that has that striking level. I don't know what his grappling is going to be like. I don't know what his wrestling is going to be like. I don't know who the matchups are going to be on his way to meeting that upper echelon of the 185. But they're guys that when they fight, if Alex Pereira can keep fights on his feet, dude, that's going to be a dangerous human. Keenan says, do you think they'll give Volk max again if he wins? I want to see him against others in the division. Not that I have anything against Max. the The problem is that um the problem is that sorry, let me just go back because I read a whole bunch of shit at the same time. Um, the problem is that Max is kind of he's beating everyone anyways. You know what I mean? So who are they going to give? How are they going to give anyone other than Max to Alex? You know, because like I don't see many people beating Max. You know, so I'll just answer all these people that are asking the Rob stuff. Um, Dude, it's a close fight. Do I think that he'll try and take Israel down? I think. Look, I think so. Yeah, I think he would have in the first fight, but he got caught, dude. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like he's fucking stupid and people didn't like that wasn't in the game plan. And that's people are fucking or the stupid shit people say. Problem is, dude, with a guy like Israel, you can't go in there and spam. You can't go in there and spam takedowns because if you go in there and spam takedowns and you get caught, even if the fight's been close and you get towards the fifth round and you start to get tired, man, he will pick you apart and hurt you. So you you gotta time that correctly, and you have to be able to strike with him to be effective with your takedowns. You saw it with Jan. Vittori was a little different because Vittori it got to a point where he wasn't trying, and I don't mean this with out of disrespect because he was trying to win, but there was a stage where you could tell he wasn't going to win this fight, and he was just shooting the double and holding Israel up. He wasn't going to win that fight like that. You know what I mean? Where if he had engaged Israel more in the striking, Israel might have stopped him. You know, and that would have been a problem for Vittori. So it wasn't like it was a bad move on Vittori's part, but it got to the point that had he have got Israel down late in the fifth, he wasn't going to win that fight. Um, uh, who do you think will be the man to beat Giga? Ooh, uh, I don't know, man. I'd like to see him against Max. I'd like to see him against Max for sure. They're interesting fighters. Ahmed Jet says, "Can you please talk a little bit about how I think Volk was able to nullify Max's striking from a technical standpoint? I think in the first fight was a really telling thing for what happened in the second fight because the first fight forced Max to change his stance and kind of square up a little bit more so that he'd stop the leg kicks. And I think that took away from the way that Max traditionally fought Alex. I'm giving you I don't want to I could talk for an hour about this, by the way. I'm just going to give a shortened version. And I think that took Max out of his normal kind of stance, was the way that Alex came in and kicked the shit out of those legs. Interesting is if you watch the Alex podcast that we have, the second podcast where I did with him, he talks extensively about that fight with Max Holloway. So he's actually a better guy giving that breakdown. But I think it was a lot had to do with the first fight affected the second fight. The success that he had with the kicks. The other thing is, even though a lot of times people don't understand this because the guy didn't drop, and this is why a lot of times people go, "Oh, I don't know what fight the judges were watching." You don't unless you're right there, you don't see the face and you don't understand what happened. Like a couple of shots, I thought that Alex was going to drop Max. I thought Alex would knock Max out with an overhand right. But even when Alex was talking to me here on the podcast, he said he landed it flush on the chin, the overhand right of Max. And he goes, and here's Max's eyes went cross-eyed, and then he just shook it off, and he was off, and he was fine. And Alex is like, he was so surprised at Max's chin. But having said all of those things, there's even though you have a good chin, there's only so many of those shots you can take. So I think there were a few of those things. Like he had to respect Alex's power, Alex's cardio and volume. There's not a lot of guys that strong and that powerful with that level of cardio, that can just keep going like a diesel engine, like what Volkanovski is. A lot of those guys that are built like that tend to slow down, and Alex doesn't. Um, so I think a big telling thing, if I was just to name one or two things, would be his ability to land those kicks, and to time them well. And then that carried over to the second fight that took Max a little bit out of his normal stance and squared him up a little bit more and allowed Alex to, I believe, enter the takedowns with a little bit more success. O says Nick Diaz by rear naked chronic choke. Could be. Polish Travel says Adesanya said New Zealand is racist and the flag is ugly. I mean, he's entitled to his opinion, and I don't really want to get into like thing, and I don't know. I'm not Adesanya, and I don't know what his experiences have been in New Zealand. Do you know what I mean? He may well have suffered racism in New Zealand, and that's going to shape his opinion of a place. So JT says, "Why is Max Holloway such a protected species in the UFC? Even when he loses, they keep claiming he won and give him the opportunity to get back to the top." Well, I think he's a long-standing champion with a massive pool, and he's a fantastic fighter, and he bashed up Calvin Qatar, bashed him. So yeah, real game of hours, says MJ. The Frank White show says the Frank White show. Ortega getting smoked. I think so. I think Ortega will get beat. Keenan says, I think 185 and 185 are in a similar boat. Two fighters who are a cut above the rest. If they aren't fighting each other, just keep shutting down any prospective contenders. I agree with you. I think 185 is even worse because I don't see, and this is no disrespect to the guys, I think it's just the way they match up. I don't see any giggers or anyone like that coming through at 185, save for Alex Pereira. But I don't know. I haven't seen Alex in the UFC, and that's a big difference. Like if he gets matched up bad against someone, whatever, it could derail that train too. The Joshua fight, Rio. What do I think? I don't know. I think Usyk might do it. I don't know. I think Joshua's got a lot of power, but Usyk's very, very, very technical boxer. Frank White says, how Ortega even got a shot from a decision win over Zombie? When was his last W before? Long time ago is when yeah, that's true as well. Like he did get that win over Zombie and then propelled straight into that title shot. Who's more pound for pound, Canelo or Fury? To me, Canelo's just a beast, dude. He's just a beast. I reckon Allen beats Giga. He could beat him. Okay, MJ says Max reminds me so much of a childhood friend. He didn't look scared at all, but once you put those gloves on, it's time to run. Alma Jet says, nice response. Thanks, man. Thank you, sir. Ooh, early thoughts on Riddell versus Fiziev. Are they fighting? I didn't know they were fighting. Riddell. I think Riddell's too technical, man. He's too technical with his stand up. Sailor's Clips says, hey Fab, what's your breakdown for Moraes versus Merab? I feel like it's falling under the radar for number 6 versus number 11 in stacked division. I've got Marlon in round 1 at plus 900. Fuck. Look, if it's going to happen for Marlon, I think it's going to happen early. I see Marlon being a strong, powerful guy in those early on in the rounds. Watch his guillotine. He's got a good guillotine. Merab is going to look to box him up, be rough, make it dirty, get the takedowns, and that's going to be a grinding fight for Merab. I see Merab probably winning the decision. Outside of that, as soon as they get slippery and they start to get a little bit fatigued, I don't see Moraes getting the finish. And I don't see Moraes being able to outstrike Merab for that amount of time without Merab being able to impose his will. Traditionally, Moraes doesn't do that well with people that pressure him and come forward, and that's exactly what Merab is. Merab has also got a good Greco kind of background, judo black belt, and so his takedowns don't have to come off his wrestling. He's got good tie-ups in the clinch, and that's just going to also add to the pressure that he's able to apply on Moraes and tire him out as the fight continues. So I'll pick Merab, and that's my breakdown. MJ says Zombie's a badass. He is 100%. Rio says, yeah, they are in December. Then I pick Riddell. But yeah, not like, he's going to smash him, but if you see Fiziev's fight with Bobby Green, he loads up a lot on those shots and he comes at it and then he'll fade, and you can't do that against Brad Riddell. Um, I want to see Riddell fight like a Gillespie or someone like that. That's the kind of fight that'd be more the kind of fight that I want to see him fight. If you're throwing strikers at him, he's going to win him most of the time. Keenan Milham says, "Don't think the case that Ortega didn't deserve a shot is very strong. Apart from Max 3, who would be next? Zabit is gone. Qatar lost. Zombie lost. Rodriguez. No, I don't know. I don't think that he doesn't deserve a shot. But I guess what he was saying was he hadn't, he'd been out for extended period of time, and he got one win and got the title shot. I think that's where he was coming from. Rio says he can't see Marlon being successful with his cardio Merab by decision. Yeah. Shivchenko's paying 184 for a KO over 5 rounds. I don't know how she's going to win, but she's going to win, and I do think she's going to stop her. Swaggy says, thoughts on Dustin versus Charles? What's the pathways to victory for each? Early, I see Charles could do it. He's got crisp striking. He hits hard. He's got really, really good jiu-jitsu. But anything outside of that, I see the diesel engine with of Poirier just putting it on Charles. That isn't to say that I pick one or the other necessarily at this stage. My heart's with Charles. I trained with Charles in Brazil. I hope Charles wins. But the way they match up is hard. Like Dustin Poirier is an absolute diesel, and but having said that, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't see Charles. If Charles can get him down and start to apply his game on Dustin from the start, then maybe. But Dustin is a diesel engine, man. It makes things ugly. If Charles drops him and does his submission stuff, then great. You know what I mean? Then he can win. But I'd probably lean towards Dustin. X Melon says, give us a Bunda reveal. I don't know what that is. Zach says, did you hear the talk that Diaz had been KO'd in training and that's why he was asking for middleweight? I heard that. But I don't know if it's true, Sorry if I skip you guys. My 2 favorite fighters, Riddell and Fiziev. I did not want that fight to happen. Yeah, Riddell's a hell of a fighter. Fiziev is as well. I enjoy watching Riddell fight. Sam Reed says, Hooker versus Nazareth. Who you got? Hooker. Do you think the visa issues affect either guy? I think the visa issues will affect both of those guys. Will it affect them enough that they won't be able to fight? I don't think so. Andrew says, Dan Hooker, your thoughts on his long flight arriving a few hours ago in Vegas, weight cutting on a plane. I spoke about it earlier, Andrew, and I don't, not to be rude, I'm not trying to be rude. I just don't want to keep repeating the same thing because I spoke about it earlier. All I'll say real quick is weight cutting on a plane. I don't know how exactly they're doing it. I haven't really thought about having to do that before. I've been with wrestling teams where they've had to weight cut similarly like that, and it wasn't fun, but they also had more time. The thing that a lot of people don't get, dude, is if the jet lag from Australia or New Zealand, which very, very similar, to the US is brutal. And if Hooker got off the plane and fought right there and then, he'd probably be all right. Or he fought a few hours later, he'd probably be all right. But it's those couple of days afterwards, man, that really are going to affect you, man. So I don't know. I really don't know how it's going to affect those guys. It's definitely going to affect. Who's my favorite fighter at 155? I'll go for Hooker. I like Gillespie. I like Brad Riddell. I like Islam, of course. I like him, and I like Hooker, and I like Charles Oliveira. Man, I don't have a favorite 155A. I think that there's a bunch of studs there. Yo says, not sure if this has been answered, Fab, but what are your thoughts on Giga, and who do you think is next for him? Fuck, I'd like to see Giga fight Max. That'd be me. That's just me, and I think Giga's a monster, dude. He's a fucking monster, But I don't know. Or Yair, I'm just saying who I'd like to see him fight, not the logistics of making the fights happen. Yair would be another interesting one at that weight. Alex himself. Ahmed Jet says this sport changes so quickly. Marlon went from champ to a lost streak so quickly. Do you think fighters can do much to avoid this, or is it just unlucky? Look, there's a big thing in life, man, where you don't like. We like to think we are in control and you can control it. There's a big thing in life where it's luck. You know what I mean? Um, you can do as much as you can to optimize your luck, but a lot of it is luck. You only have to zig when you should have zagged, and it's done. You lost the fight. Um, it's also difficult because people are watching you and they're watching everything you do. And if you're not changing and you're not getting better and you're not adding wrinkles to the game, and I'm not saying that this isn't what it is, it's like people will figure you out. The other thing is sometimes you fight a couple of times and your opponent zigged when he should have zagged, and you get a couple of good wins and you're off and running. Your opponents have a lot to do with it, man. Your opponents have a lot to do with it. How you get matched up, who you get matched up with, where they are in their career, that all of that matters, man. And a lot of that's not in your control. I don't even know what you're talking about, Matt Walls. Um, Swaggy says, I reckon Charles wrestling's underrated though. I agree. I do agree with that. Charles is very slick right now, Roberto. Um, Melon says Dustin has 60% takedown defense. If he can't stuff a nosebleed, how's he going to stuff a takedown? Um, it also depends who you fight with your percentage of takedown defense, because he also fought Khabib, who's a monster on the taking down. So statistics always a bit messed up. Sorry guys, I'm going to skip a few. Rashid says, mate, you know how when you spend time around your mates, their characteristics and traits rub off on you? My question is, does Rob rub off on you a lot? I haven't seen Rob for about 2 years. So I don't know. But when I was coaching Rob for years, I coached Rob, I would imagine that a lot of probably more me onto him than him onto me, just because I'm older and like the relationship was a different kind of a different kind of thing, you know. So he probably has a lot of my mannerisms in that. I had him first, um, but yeah, I haven't seen him for years now. Sailor's Clip says Charles has great timing on his double leg. I feel like he'll be able to get Dustin down eventually. I think he'll probably get Dustin down early, to be honest with you. MJ says, does anyone believe that the theory that Dustin is an actual dickhead in the gym? Because I don't. Honest question. Um, I don't know if Dustin is or isn't, but a lot of the fighters, man, not just fighters, people in general, it's a persona that you're putting out to the public. So I don't know him personally. You know what I mean? So there's no way of me saying that. And even if I did, I wouldn't say it. Um, Dustin was getting taken down at will by the striker in Dan Hooker. He's done come December. Man, Dan's been around for a long time too, though, man. He's been around for a long time. His grappling is very good. Will Giga challenge for the title in 2022? I think so. I think so. How do you think Alja and Peter rematch in October goes? I think it'll go very similar to their first fight, without Peter kneeing him in the face. Having said that, man, Alja is a jumping bean, you know, and that unorthodox kicking and everything could catch Peter out. It caught Peter out in the first fight too. So for those first 3 rounds, until he starts to settle, and if Peter can maintain his composure, Alja will be very, very dangerous. But there's like a, Peter's a consummate boxer, you know, so he's just going to keep coming forward. You know, his technique is so good. He's hits good switch hitting, and that he will catch Aljo. I think he'll beat Aljo. Um, Beetlejuice says, "Hey Fabsky, hope you and the family are well. We are, man. How are you, sir?" People forget Giga has terrible cardio. Anyone that pushes the pace will beat Giga, but Boza gave him the slow pace he wants. Maybe. Um, Beetlejuice says, "I've been training Muay Thai a lot lately. Who are some great Muay Thai fighters to watch for some inspiration?" Man, watch some vintage Ernesto Hoost. It's not Muay Thai, it's K1, but I like watching Hoost. He's so slick, man. Um, Titus Crow says, saw John Jones looking big. Do you think he can put on 50 pounds of good weight in 18 to 20 months? I mean, I don't, yes, maybe, yes. Who knows? If, especially if you know, if it's not all done naturally, I'm not implying that he won't, but I'm saying, yes, can you put on the weight? You ask, yes, you can. Um, but I don't think that's a telling point. I spoke about John Jones and Thingo earlier in the piece. Sorry, guys, I'm going to skip a few. What did I think about the Nick Diaz interview? As a huge Diaz fan, he's always been this way. The only difference I saw is that he was really affected by his brother's fight. Look, I am a big Diaz fan as well. If you look back years later, like years before, he's always Marcus. I'm talking about Marcus Alvey here. He's always been affected by his brother's fights. And I think in an interview years ago, probably 15 years ago, 10 years ago, somebody asked him who would win out of you and Nate, and he got really upset with the interviewer for asking him that. Saying, "I can't believe um, that you'd even ask me that. He's my brother," and blah blah blah. And so that's the emotional connection that he and his brother have. The Diaz brothers have always answered that, and this is the other thing. People are always like armchair psychologists in these things, where they sit down, they go like, "I saw the way that he answered this, and he looked away, and I think that means this," and da da da. There's dudes that like just because I might come out and go. A friend of mine actually recently got into a street fight, and was a bad situation, been going on for a while, and it was going to happen. Um, and I would tell you that he was probably scared of this other guy, And my mate fucking pasted him, And uh, it's sad because I don't like the street fights, and I feel for the other guy to be honest as well. But like being scared doesn't mean shit. It doesn't mean anything. I can say or being scared or just being real and saying, you know what, there's a very good chance, actually a 50% chance that I could lose this fight. It doesn't mean that your confidence is not there. It just means that you are aware of what the consequence could be. You know, you might, and then there's other people that don't even think about it. I did a podcast with Richie Vass and Mark Matthews, the two big wave surfers, and Richie Vass doesn't think about it, doesn't care. He just goes hard. Mark Matthews analyzes it, and he thinks about the possibilities of what could go wrong with the waves. But end of the day, they both ride that wave, and they're both very successful at it. So it doesn't. It's not. Don't look into that too much. Um, Bob says I've got 100,000 on Volkanovski. I think he'll win. I don't know if I'll put 100,000. Have you worse injuries amongst amateurs or pros? Can you repeat that, man? Um, Keenan says, do you feel like there has been another gear shift in the UFC in the last couple of years? I look back at even recent champions and it's boggling. Like Bisping to Adesanya feels like the Grand Canyon. Yeah, but in fairness, Anderson Silva at his peak, I don't think would have lost to Bisping. Like at his peak, when Anderson was, smoking dudes and that, I don't think that Bisping would have beat him. No disrespect to Bisping. So I do think it's gone up a gear. And I think Adesanya would have beat Anderson at any point, just because of the way they match up. But that's it. MJ says this is really interesting to hear from you, TY. I don't know what TY means, and I don't know if you're talking to me or if you're talking to TY. Howdy McStud says, did you see Badahari get knocked out a few weeks ago? Crazy comeback. Um, I saw him get knocked out when he fought Benji. Um, I actually had an interview with him at Igbui before the Badahari fight, if that's what you're referring to. Not the one from a few weeks ago, though. The Mad Wolf says, I got Volkanovski, Shivchenko, Lawler winning Saturday, even though I'd like to see Diaz get the win. Fair enough. Good picks. I'd pick Diaz, but be good picks. Sorry, guys, I'm skipping a few. Sorry if I miss your questions, guys. It's just a lot of people on there. Nicholas Bright says GSP has been pretty open of being scared shitless before every single fight and almost didn't want to make the walk a couple of times due to nerves, but still went out and wrecked everyone. Yeah, man. There's and McDonald, same camp. He wasn't scared to fight. and he was fantastic as well. He was an absolutely fantastic fighter. It doesn't mean shit. It does not mean anything. Um, uh, oh, MJ says TY means thank you, and I was talking to you, sir. Sorry, man. Sorry. Uh, I didn't know. I didn't know. Thank you, man. Thank you very much. Rashid Jude says, right, seriously now, why haven't you seen Rob for 2 years, mate? We're not working together anymore, man. We haven't been working together for ages. Magel says, what are your thoughts on Usman versus Colby 2, and how do you see it playing out? I don't know, man, because I think that's another one. Um, I think that's another one that wasn't there was not that much in that fight. You know what I mean? I do probably see Colby trying to wrestle him and take away some of that power from Usman, but there wasn't a lot in that fight, dude. Um, JG says my coach told me he once ref the fight where a dude got knocked out, pissed and shit himself, and then his corner left him. Wow, I've been to a fight night where a guy got knocked out and pissed himself. I was friends with the guy actually. I was friends with both guys that fought each other, and that's what I mean. It makes me real sad. It makes me real sad when see people get beat. Sailor's Clip says, "Do you think Volk can get the finish? The Mexican chins are tough to crack." Yeah, man. I I do think Volks can get the finish. I definitely do. Guys, I'm going to leave you with this. Please let me know in the comments what you think. Please join me this Sunday for the fights. I will be starting. We have it scheduled for 12 o'clock, but yeah, we'll be starting a little bit early because I'm going to catch a hooker fight in that. So, guys, please, thank you so much. I want to thank you all you guys for the support and for tuning in. And yeah, man, please share this with people, like and subscribe, and hit the notification bell, guys. Big hugs to you. Look after yourselves. Look after your families. Thank you so much. Take care.